Hello and welcome back to the MMA India Show with your host Parvin Dabas, and we have a new guest on our show today, Chinmay Bhogle. Thank you, Chinmay, and welcome to the MMA India Show.
Thank you, Parvin. I've been following the show for a while. I'm a huge MMA fan. I run a website that has a thriving MMA section as well, so I've been looking forward to coming on this show. It's been doing really well, and congratulations to you and all the guys that watch the show.
Thanks so much. And it's great to finally have you on and have you on with your UFC cap all ready to do some UFC post-fight review commentary.
It's been a good weekend for combat sports. Lots of stuff happening. Naturally, the main thing were the two big UFC cards this weekend. We can talk about that. There's Bellator. There was a huge boxing fight this weekend as well.
You know, it's been a really good weekend, but don't you think it's been a very confusing weekend also for fight fans, because it's been a problem of plenty.
It has. In fact, for me, I remember Bader and Little Nog were fighting. At the same time, when Ward and Kovalev were fighting. At the same time, Michael Chandler was walking into the ring against Benson Henderson. So it was
in fact, Tyrone Woodley put out a really cool tweet with a picture showing him with four screens in front of him. So he was able to watch everything at the same time. He said, "This is how I'm watching everything at the same time."
So I had my laptop and I had my TV on at the same time. So
okay, great. So let's start with UFC Fight Night 99 Belfast. You know, the main fight, of course, on that card. We will stick to that for now, which was the revenge match. Gegard Mousasi versus Hall, part 2. Now, I was speaking to Akhilesh on our pre-match thing, and we were speaking about Uriah, how he has... It's so sad to see him not reaching his potential, because he's such a good fighter, but he just doesn't always bring it. He doesn't seem desperate enough for what it is. I mean, it's hard for us to say, because of course he's training really hard. Every fighter does come to the cage to give it his all, but there's just something missing, because one feels that he can do much better, and now he's on with this loss. He lost in the first round by TKO. He's on a 3 fight losing streak now. Yeah.
The thing with Uriah Hall is, I mean, everyone's always said that he's had a lot of potential, particularly in the middleweight division, which is quite old. I mean, there's Rockhold and Weidman who are still at least in their early mid-30s. But Hall, particularly in the beginning, was seen as the big young prospect. But now at age 32, I don't think he's going to get much better. As you mentioned, he's had 3 losses. I think it's time to accept that he's just going to be the kind of fighter that's flashy, that blows hot and blows cold. Sometimes he's going to have a nice flashy knockout once in a while. But I think it's time to start looking at him as... I never thought I'd say that Uriah Hall would be a gatekeeper in the middleweight division, but he's fast approaching that status, because he's clearly losing to some of the more elite competition there, and he seems to be good enough to be able to beat some of the guys ranked below him. So I think he's going to be stuck there for a while.
I would say, I would fully agree. What I would say, what is needed for him, I think, is maybe a change of fight camp. Something needs to change. He needs to get a new perspective. Something to build his hunger again. Some people to push him. Something needs to change.
Perhaps.
So I think that is one of the things he can, perhaps do is, if it's not working, then he needs to change it. So first things first is maybe have a look at that fight camp.
He probably needs a good coach who can identify whether it's a skill deficit or just a mental preparation deficit, whatever the case is. In this case, though, I don't think it would have mattered, because I think Mousasi is just a more superior fighter. He got caught in the earlier fight. I think everyone was really expecting Mousasi to win this fight as well. I mean, it was pretty one-sided. Apart from that one kick that Hall landed, I mean, Mousasi, the minute he got him up against the cage, you knew the fight was over. Mousasi's top game has been great, and we saw that in the Belfast fight as well. So, no surprises.
Mousasi, I feel, of course, does deserve, a top fight now. Of course, everybody has been busy. He's really good, but I think he's still yet to get that defining opponent, which will say yes, he has arrived.
Yes.
I don't think personally, and we spoke about this on the show, I don't think beating Belfort, the Belfort now, post USADA is as big a thing as it was before.
Absolutely, and I think that's why he took this fight, because all the guys ranked above him already booked. There's Whittaker and Brunson who are going to be fighting now in Australia. Naturally, Weidman and Romero just fought. Originally, Jacare and Rockhold were booked, so he thought he might as well take this fight. The thing with Mousasi is he has had opportunities. He's lost to Machida and he's lost to Jacare. So he has had opportunities. He's lost to those two guys. I think, and this is what he said in interviews as well, he has gotten to another level. I'd like to see this version of Mousasi against some of those top guys.
And I think this was a smart move for him because in his last 6 fights, not counting this one, his only loss had been to Hall.
Correct.
And of course, it was a good way of though, see, personally, I would never look at them like flukes, because it's then, you start saying, oh, Alvarez, McGregor versus Aldo was a fluke. He can easily say, oh, that's a fluke. I want that fight back. He just got lucky with that one punch. But that's what it is. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about that one punch. It's about that one spinning kick. That's what the fight game is. You can't call that a fluke.
100%. I would not call that a fluke either. I think Mousasi in previous interviews has said as much. He said, look, it wasn't a fluke. I just went in with the wrong game plan. I came in trying to be overly aggressive. I left my defenses down and he got a kick. It's not going to happen again. And as we saw in this fight, it didn't.
Okay, well, moving on to UFC Fight Night 100 Sao Paulo. Of course, how crazy is it that there's 2 UFC Fight Nights happening on the same day, slightly staggered by a couple of hours? I mean, they could have done it Saturday, Sunday, something. I mean, it's like literally like आधे आदमी इस तरफ, आधे आदमी इस तरफ, बाकी मेरे पीछे. I mean, like,
It was a little strange, but I think they really wanted to get a card there to Europe at the time. And if you look at the way the UFC is booked going ahead, I mean, there's just fight after fight after fight.
But that's what I'm saying. Why not Saturday, Sunday rather than 2 on...
Yep. But I think historically the UFC fights on Sunday have not done well, so that's why they don't tend to put it there. Except, I think the only UFC fight that's done well on a Sunday was Brock Lesnar versus Overeem, and of course that was Brock Lesnar, so it's going to do well no matter when you put it. But yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, moving on to the first fight we want to speak about is Kamaru Usman, who is the Ultimate Fighter winner, Blackzilians versus American Top Team versus Waverly Alvis. And of course, we spoke to Kamaru Usman before his fight.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to speak to him and we aired that video, of course, the full interview with him. And he did tell us...
a prediction out of him.
We did, of course. He was really, really confident. And we are the first ones to break the news that he was going to call out Damian Maia if he won. We say if. He said, of course, in a more definitive manner that he was going to win. He didn't see Waverly Alvis having any chance. And when you see the fight... Did you see the fight?
I actually missed this fight because I was watching all the others. So this is the one fight that I missed.
Usman is known as a wrestler, right? He is one of the strongest grapplers in the UFC, and his confidence in that is amazing. He says no one can take him down. He can take down people not just against the fence in the middle of the ring, and he feels his grappling game is spotless. So it was really good to see him coming out though with a very strong stand-up game. Now we have seen that he's been spotting a lot with Michael Johnson, and it was interesting to see that Michael Johnson was in his corner. Which shows the seriousness with which he takes his stand-up game now. And he dominated Waverly Alvis throughout most of the 3 rounds, especially the second and third. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to finally get the stoppage because he was controlling most of the fight. What it seemed like was Waverly's plan. He didn't have a strategy of his own. Most of his plan seemed around how to counter Kamaru rather than how he was going to play to his strengths. So he seemed to be countering Kamaru's ground game most of the time, which is why it seemed that he was surprised that Kamaru didn't go to the ground for a very long time.
Okay.
And there was one time he was going to take him down. Then Alvis, who was known to have a really good guillotine, did threaten that guillotine, which made Kamaru give him some space. And, so the match came, the fight came to the feet again. But of course, it ended. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Kamaru was, did get all 3 rounds. What was surprising, what took people by surprise, was how good he had become on his feet. With his stand-up game, and of course, like I said, that's due to a lot of sparring with his teammate, Blackzilian's teammate. Michael Johnson.
Yep.
And he did, like he told us, he did call out Damian Maia after at the end of the fight. Damian Maia was in the audience. Damian Maia was in the audience.
Yeah, I hear Maia might just take a fight against Lawler in case they do the Woodley Wonderboy rematch.
So Damian Maia did tweet then after Kamaru Usman called him out. Damian Maia did tweet that it was a really good fight, Usman, and I congratulate you. And I look forward to you fighting more top, people in the top 10 or top contenders and getting a place in the top 10.
Before you get to me, I think Maia has a fair point there.
Which was, I guess, a very smooth and polite way of saying, you got to wait your turn a little while longer.
Yep. So, Fair enough. So coming to the next fight we want to speak about is Claudia Gadelha versus Casey. Correct.
And that was a really, dominant fight. Again, one expected more out of Casey. But Claudia Gadelha is, of course, so strong. She's the only one. Not the only one, but she's the one who has given the strongest fight so far to the strawweight champ, Joanna.
Correct.
Her fight in July, she was dominating a lot of it until she ran out of, steam.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the scorecards didn't quite reflect the fight as well. I thought Gadelha did very, very well. It was a much closer fight than the scorecards reflected.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Gadelha is that she and your Jacek appear to be head and shoulders above the rest of the division. I think there's a very easy but unfortunate comparison that can be made with her.
Carolina seems pretty close to them. It would be very interesting to see a Claudia versus Carolina fight now, I think.
I think so, but I still give Claudia the edge there. Yeah, I mean, I think
fair enough. That's why I'm saying it would be very interesting to see that matchup.
It's going to be very interesting. I won't be surprised at all if the UFC books that fight. They'd already hinted at it. In fact, they hinted at it before Claudia had even had her fight, so it seemed obvious to everyone that they expected Claudia to win. I think the most interesting part of that fight was the controversy. Naturally, I mean.
Claudia did
channeling some,
of course, the controversy there. She kicked her opponent. She did try to check the kick immediately. I think it was more of a mistake, which is why a point was not taken off of her.
True. For starters, I think the point should have been taken off, even if it was unintentional, because at the end of the day, she did land a soccer kick to the girl's head.
Yeah.
However, she, I think, clarified that and apologized at the end. What she was trying to do was kick the body. However, she moved at the very last minute, so it wasn't intentional. And there's not too much you can do in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But that kick definitely hurt, and it did have an impact on the fight. And so, for those reasons alone, I think a point should have been taken. Gadelha has clearly forgotten that the unified rules aren't the same as pride rules. You're not allowed to kick someone in the head when they're grounded.
Yeah, I do agree as well that a point should definitely have been taken off, even if it was unintentional.
Yeah.
But she won the fight, and she did express her disappointment at getting an opponent like Cassie, who's not ranked very high.
True, but then I guess the question is, who do you give her? Rose Namajunas is coming off a loss. Paige Van Zandt's book, Michelle Watterson's book, Carolina's just had a fight. It's really hard to find that kind of opponent, so I think they probably just wanted to give her a fight here. Keep in mind that she's also just changed camps, so maybe they didn't want to give her a top-ranked opponent just yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. I'll be very surprised if she don't get a top 3 or top 5 opponent next.
Yeah. Now coming to the next fight, Almeida versus Morales. I wasn't able to catch that match for various reasons. In between, I had to take a break. So if you want to, tell us a little about the fight.
Sure. So I had read a bit about this. Actually, one of my favorite divisions in the UFC right now is the men's bantamweight division, because it's such an interesting mix of experience and young guys. And Almeida, someone I've been, trying to follow for a while.
Yeah.
And everyone said, this was really just a tune-up fight for Almeida after that last loss. But the more I read about his opponent, and the more, I started following some of the experts.
Who did he lose to?
He lost to Cody Garbrandt.
Ah, okay. Okay.
He lost to Cody Garbrandt. And then, the minute more and more people started looking at his opponent, they said, hey, you know what, this is not going to be an easy fight. I think Almeida is going to win it, but he's going to face some adversity. And that's exactly what happened, because Almeida had a lot of very good boxing to overcome. At the end of the day, he did win the fight because I think he's the harder puncher, and I just think he has a more diverse set of strikes. Also, the fact that he's just more experienced. But this was not an easy fight. It was back and forth. There was a lot of action. And if anyone hasn't seen the fight and is watching this, I suggest you try and watch it because it is a great fight to watch.
Yes, on the replay rerun on Sony ESPN. Whenever time it comes, we will try to post those times. But now, going to the main event, Ryan Bader versus Nogueira. Of course, Ryan Bader replaced Alexander Gustafsson, who got injured and had to be taken off the card. Ryan Bader has always been threatening to challenge for the title, of course, then lost to Rumble Johnson.
Lost Rumble,
So of course he's making a run for the title again, and he was the favorite as far as I know going in.
Yeah, he was.
Nogueira did win his last fight against Patrick Cummins, which is why they gave him this, strong fight.
Yep.
But he is, in that almost...
And he's taken a ton of damage.
I'm trying to think of a nice, polite way to say it, but in that retirable age, so to speak.
He's a legend of the sport, but he clearly looked old, and he clearly looked... And he's taken a lot of damage, and I think it's also due to the fact that the light heavyweight division is extremely thin.
Yeah.
So Bader's already lost to Rumble. Right, and so he's clearly separated from those top guys. He's lost to John Jones as well earlier on.
Yeah.
So you give him then as a fight, right? I mean, I think Little Nog, given that he had looked a little better, was not that bad a choice. And I think Little Nog did manage to land some shots in the beginning, but I think Bader's wrestling is too good. Bader's younger, bigger, stronger. He's just on a different level right now. This is also his last fight on his contract, by the way, so I think he would have been fairly happy to get a win of that kind.
Yes, I'm sure the UFC, if IFC, they would want to retain him. Why not?
They would, yes. Yeah. They would, especially, I mean, he can go to Bellator and they have a couple of good light heavyweights there, so he might be able to pick up a fight there. But really, if you look at things, let's say Daniel Cormier beats Rumble again, okay? Then you're not going to see that fight. He's already fought Gustafsson. Jones is going to be out for a while. Yeah. There's a ready-made rivalry with Bader there. I won't be surprised if Bader signs with the UFC and gets the next title shot if DC beats Rumble, and that's going to be a tough fight.
Yes, it is going to be a tough fight. But that's another discussion for another day.
That's another discussion altogether, but good win for Bader, and I won't be surprised if we see him in the UFC.
Yeah, a good, strong win. One saw a really complete fighter both on his feet and on the ground, which he is. He's developed a really good all-round game. So, I think that is the next fight for him. And now, coming to Invicta, which was screened a day before on UFC Fight Pass, we'll talk about the top two fights. Angela Hill versus Medeiros. Now, Medeiros had just defeated an Indian fighter, Manjeet Kolikar, to get this title shot.
Yes, we watched that fight live actually.
Oh, awesome. Live,
on Fight Pass at the time. Yeah.
On Fight Pass, you mean?
On Fight Pass, yeah. It was good to see an Indian fighter fighting on Fight Pass on an international platform.
Yeah. And I think Akhilesh told me she, of course, hurt her hand in the second round.
Yep.
Put her back a bit. But coming back to this fight, Angela Hill, of course, the champ, versus Medeiros, who I think in the first couple of rounds was pretty strong. But Angela Hill was dominant then throughout her all-round game. There were no standout moments as such.
True. No real standout moments. I think the main standout moments were after the fight, where Angela Hill said that she was willing to drop
to 105.
To become a two-division champion. I think Angela Hill is in a slightly odd position right now, where she's had losses against some of the top women's fighters in the UFC, but she's clearly a lot better than some of the more regional talent that she's going to get at Invicta. I wouldn't be surprised if she's back in the UFC soon enough. I mean, naturally, Invicta will not want to let go of their champion. I mean, given she's building up a bit of a following here. But in terms of pure talent, if the UFC finds maybe a year from now that Jacek's gone and cleaned out the entire division, they might want to look at getting new people back.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the main event, Tonya Avenger versus Yana Kunitskaya. Of course, Tonya hadn't lost in the last 5 years. Yana Kunitskaya was a bit of an anomaly. People didn't know much about her coming in. Now, of course, there was a lot of controversy surrounding this fight because Kunitskaya got her in an arm bar, and Avenger put her foot on Yana's face for leverage.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, the referee asked her to remove her foot, due to which she had to reposition herself, and Yana got the armbar in even deeper. Now, what Evinger and a lot of other people said afterwards is it was not illegal. It's illegal if you're stomping on your opponent's face. She was not stomping. She merely placed her foot there for leverage because it was right beneath her, I guess. So,
True.
So,
the thing about that is, when I watched that, that's the first thing that struck me as well. I wasn't sure because I wasn't sure what the rule is in defining a strike. I mean, if it's just a touch, if it's a touch with force, stuff like that, it's a little hard to differentiate. But Big John McCarthy, who's the guy that pretty much wrote the rules, has specifically gone on the record and said that was allowed. It wasn't considered a strike. And unfortunately, during the repositioning, Avenger was put in an even tougher position and lost the fight. I hope she gets an immediate rematch. I see her winning that one.
Yes, she should get an immediate rematch. I don't see any other...
She should, and I think she's good enough to be challenging Jan Jacek at some point, because Jan Jacek is just running through contenders. At some point, you're going to have to get more contenders for her, and I think Avenger is a good person to put in there.
Yeah.
At some.
Now, coming to Bellator, Michael Venom Page versus Gonzalez. I wasn't able to see this because there is no legal way of seeing it in our country right now.
Much.
And I don't like watching, the streams and this and that fans keep sending. So I do hope they come out with, some way of the Indian fans legally watching, streaming it, Bellator. They should come out with a subscription. They should allow the subscription service.
They should do something. I see it happening soon, because at the end of the day, Bellator is owned by Viacom. Viacom has a strong presence in India.
And Scott Coker has said he wants to bring a fight to India. And he wants to try and reuse Viacom's reach in India and strength.
In fact, I was the one who asked him that question on the conference.
Oh, okay. Okay, nice.
At 2 a.m. in the morning. And I think they were a little surprised to hear someone calling in from India at that point for that fight, saying, when are you going to get someone to India? That was fun. I do hope they get it here, but I think what's more important is, particularly with some of the big names they've signed, now Fedor is going to fight in Bellator.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to get some sort of if not a TV deal, at least now, Viacom has Boot. They should at least put it on streaming, Something. They should make a legal option.
I totally agree. Viacom owns Bellator. They should put it on Voot at least stream it for the fans. There's so many diehard fans. And they've got such good fighters now. Michael Venom Page versus Gonzalez was a huge fight. It's unfortunate that in this fight, he didn't live up to the hype, so to speak. And you'll be in a better position to comment on the fight itself, though.
True. I think what happens with guys like MVP, guys who are excellent counter strikers, is that the opponent isn't enough of an aggressor or doesn't, play along, then they are not too keen on starting an exchange.
Yeah.
If you remember, Anderson Silva went through an entire run where he where he had a couple of boring fights. The one against Damian Maia, for example, is the best example of that. I think some of that happened here. I don't think MVP was too keen on starting exchanges. In fact, he was taunting him, saying, hey, he was trying to get his opponent to attack first. It was a terrible fight, and I hope that doesn't happen again, because MVP is one of the most exciting fighters in the world to watch, and I think Bellator is going to need a lot more from him if they are to grow as an MMA product.
Yeah. And Scott Coker had said if he gets a sensational finish, he will get a title fight. I don't think that happened, of course. So it seems like he will have to still prove himself in one more fight before he gets it.
MVP's a welterweight, right? He's got some pretty stiff competition at the top at Bellator there. So he's got a way to go.
Who else is there at Bellator to fight him? Who else can he fight now?
Well, I mean, there's Koreshkov who just lost. There's Lima, and there's Rory McDonald now at welterweight. Plus, I mean, Michael Chandler.
This is something we discussed previously. Is that Rory McDonald, Michael would be a very good fight, but they won't be put together right now because they're both such huge draws that either of them losing would be, not very beneficial to the company.
But here's the deal. I don't think Michael Venom Page is that young anymore. At some point, they're going to have to put him in there against big name fights. Because, it's one thing if he was, let's say a 24.
I'm not saying they shouldn't put him against a big name fight. I'm saying just not McDonald right now, since McDonald's just come in.
Yep. Style-wise, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So coming to the title fight, Michael Chandler versus Benson Henderson.
Sure.
Of course, Benson Henderson coming from the UFC, having a 1-1 record before this at Bellator. Was supposed to be a great fight. Like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it again.
Right.
But I have read about it.
Yeah. The thing with Benson Henderson is he's in a tough position right now because he's lost his 2 fights at Bellator. I personally had picked Chandler to win. If you've seen Chandler, I mean, he is one of the biggest lightweights that there is. In fact, for this fight, he rehydrated to a weight that was more than Wonderboy weight for his welterweight fight against Tyron Woodley. He's that big, And what you should do, and this is just going all over social media, and you should try and check it out at some point, is this incredible suplex that he had.
I seen that. I seen that. That was quite amazing to see him throw someone like Benson Henderson like that.
True, and he did. However, the thing with these guys when they're so big and they cut so much weight is that they're big front runners, but they start fading towards the end, and that's what happened with Michael Chandler, which is why I suspect one of the judges gave a couple of rounds. In fact, gave Henderson a winning scorecard. Personally, I had Michael Chandler winning easily, along with the first round being a 10-8. Like you said, I hope they managed to show it some way legally in India because it was an incredible fight and more people need to watch it. Yeah,
or they're just going to have to see. Another thing is, a lot of the highlights are not visible in our country. There's regional issues even in the highlights, which is very unfortunate.
True.
So,
it is.
Anyway.
I mean, I don't get it. I get it if, it's being shown somewhere here, then I can understand why it's being geo-blocked. If it isn't, then they probably should open it up.
Even if it is being shown, even if it is being shown, like UFC fights come on Sony ESPN and Sony 6, but the highlights you cannot again view them anywhere.
Yeah.
They're not they're not viewable in our country, which is pretty stupid. We just saw the whole fight. Whole fight live. Why can't we see the highlights now if we want to?
It's a good point. If anyone's watching this show, please try and do something.
Yeah, we're going to have to do something about it. Everyone write to the UFC for highlights and Bellator for live streams. We need to write to them right now. Now, coming...
100%.
We don't usually talk about boxing, but this was a huge super fight, and we know you are dying to talk about it.
Yes, absolutely.
The super fight between Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev, which had Twitter ablaze.
Yes, 100%. If you manage to see this fight, and the thing with HBO is they do upload highlights to their YouTube channel, so I strongly suggest that you actually check out the fight.
Okay.
I personally had Kovalev winning. I think Ward was dropped for just the first or the second time in his career.
Yeah.
Ward remains undefeated. It was 2 undefeated top pound for pound fighters going at each other. It was a very close fight. Tremendous skill on display. I strongly suggest that you try and watch this. It was an incredible fight. Personally, I had the Crusher, that's his nickname, winning the fight. But I'm pretty sure they're going to do the rematch soon enough. Kovalev versus Ward 2. Or rather, it'll be Ward versus Kovalev 2 this time, given that Ward won.
Okay, and we have a question from a fan, Avalon Singh. And I'm just going to ask it now. Ward was knocked down in the second round and was getting hit the whole fight. Kovalev put him against the rope and continued hitting him. How did this fight prefer Ward? And he continues, even if the fight was scored 114 to 113, how come judges prefer Ward? Since Kovalev has 3 belts, Ward should have done more than that to get a majority decision. That is from Aberon Singh.
True. I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name again.
Aberon Singh.
Okay. So, personally, I had Kovalev winning the fight. So, I had him winning the fight on the scorecards also. The thing is, Kovalev naturally has a conspiracy theory. He's like, I'm Russian, I'm fighting in America. I've
read those theories, yeah.
So, that's his conspiracy theory. The thing about, and if you look at the fight numbers, Kovalev out.
That's like a reverse Rocky 5.
Yes.
Yes. Which is really funny because Bigfoot Silva just fought in Russia and everybody says that the fight was stolen from him as well.
Yep.
Which was 100%. Like Rocky 5. I mean, except he's not American, but you get the drift.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
The thing about Kovalev is he threw more punches, he landed more punches. The accuracy was lower, but what Ward was doing was Ward was throwing a lot of body shots. And I think Ward definitely won a lot of the later rounds where Kovalev faded a little bit. However, if you ask me, the fight should have gone to Kovalev. I think it would have been 114 to 113, but the other way around. Either way, I hope we get to see the rematch. I won't be surprised if Ward wins the rematch cleanly.
That's if there's a rematch.
It looked like he cleared him out, but...
that's if there's a rematch.
Sorry?
That's if there's a rematch.
I'm pretty sure there'll be a rematch, and I'll tell you why. It's because there aren't too many other big names in that division. Okay. So Ward needs to fight somebody, right? So who's he going to fight? This is the fight that's going to garner the most interest. This is the fight that's going to have the most lasting effect on both their legacies, and this is the fight that more importantly is going to make them the most amount of money. So I won't be surprised if this rematch occurs.
A lot of people have complained, especially on Twitter, that this is one of the reasons boxing is a little shady when it comes to the point system and how they point, how they score a fight.
Oh, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that boxing scoring needs, or rather the judges need a complete overhaul in terms of how they're scoring fights. This one to me was a little inexplicable, but what happened was you could kind of make the argument that Ward was landing a little more accurately, but when one fighter has a knockdown, lands the more powerful shot, throws more punches, lands more punches, I think the fight should go to that fighter. That's why I had Kovalev winning.
Okay. Well, having said that, that's the end of our show for this week. There were a lot of fights, and I think it's amazing that we've concised everything into this amount of time. And I really wish the next time we're not forced to scatter to find different ways of seeing all these fights. So I just hope we're a little, stuttered so we can see everything and not, even especially for UFC, not have to wake up in the middle of the night to catch one of the fight cards. Anyway, 7:30 is early enough a time on a Sunday morning to have to catch the fights. Instead of the prelims, I think were the prelims of UFC 99 Belfast were starting, I think, at 11 p.m. or 12, India time.
Something like that. 7:30, something like that.
Yeah. So which means once you're watching it, then you're watching it throughout the night. And I'm sure there are some diehard fans who did catch that whole action, and they're now sleeping out there. But but we do wish that the days and timings are set so there's not so much overlapping, because the quality of the fights is so amazing on all of these cards. That's what's amazing is UFC, Invicta, Bellator. These are all such high standard fight cards. Bellator has really come up in the last 2 years since Scott Coker has taken over. He has of course brought some older fighters in. He's brought some new talent. But he's really lifted the whole promotion up.
Yep. One last point, something I don't think we probably touched on. On that note, Fedor Emelianenko is going to be fighting in Bellator. He signed a multi-fight deal.
Yes, we did touch upon it, but we didn't put a spotlight on it. So now is the time to put a spotlight on it. Is Fedor versus Matt Mitrione.
And more importantly, he signed a multi-fight deal. So I see him fighting a couple of the other bigger names, a Tito Ortiz, maybe even a Chael Sonnen. I think those fights are going to happen. It's going to be a great amount of fun, and I hope they are, like we said earlier, telecast or streamed legally in India.
Yes, well, we're looking forward to that. And having said that, Thank you, Chinmay. It was lovely having you on the MMA India show this week.
Thank you.
And we look forward to
Nice
having
day.
you again.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you. And having said that, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Parvin Dabas saying thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Chinmay. Thank you and goodbye from the MMA India show.